I think all of us, I think anybody listening, because it's a very real element of our lives, have felt something along the way. But the sense of evil being present and the sense of goodness being present. And when you start diving into the nature of evil, God's love is really where it starts to understand, like, God loves us unconditionally. But we have an opportunity to screw this up. We can get this wrong. We can do things that separate us from the love of God and reject the love of God in our hearts. And I think that that's where evil really starts to stir up. You know, it's the devil whispering us in our ear, we're not good enough. You shouldn't be this way. Don't worry about this. I mean, we all have very subtle things that we deal with on how spiritual warfare works. And it will seep into every aspect of our lives if we let it. That's why, Ephesians 6 is so powerful, because it's important to understand that the evaluation of, like, from a warrior's heart, from a warrior's perspective of understanding spiritual warfare and understanding physical warfare on earth, our physical being. We're engaging in this physical world, but there's this spiritual dimension that absolutely exists, right? If we understand eternity and we understand heaven and hell, those start to become very real and very apparent. But Ephesians 6 starts with, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise, for it is well with you and that you'll live a long life on earth. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but raise them up in the discipline and the instruction of the Lord. Slaves, be obedient to your earthly masters, with fear and trembling, as a singleness of heart as to Christ, not as eye service, not as men pleasers, but as servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, rendering service of a good will, not as to men, but for the Lord, that knowing any good anyone does will be also done to them, whether they're a slave or free. Masters, do the same to them, forbearing threatening, knowing that he who is their master's and yours is in heaven, but knows no partiality. And then it goes into the armor of God. Finally, be strong and put on the whole armor of God, that we can withstand the wiles of the devil. Because our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities and the powers and the rulers of the present darkness of this world. And then he goes on to stand firm, so you can stand in the evil day. Put on the belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the gospel of the shoes of peace, the helmet of salvation, and the sword of the Spirit, and the shield of faith. And so from a spiritual sense, what I always find fascinating about Ephesians 6 is that every warrior knows that pretty well. Put on the full armor of God. We've all heard it before. And so we're like, yeah, let's go. Let's put on the armor. But in the spiritual dimension, that chapter actually starts with, children, obey your parents. Honor your father and mother. Don't provoke your children to anger. Whether you're a slave or free in this life, no matter where your circumstance is, no matter where you are, our calling is to have a singleness of heart, to serve God out of love and to do a good will. And so if we're not putting that groundwork and foundation in front of thinking that we're going to armor up and that we're actually going to walk out protected from anything, we're missing the key elements and key foundational things in our life. So if we want to put the armor on, we got to get the basics right. That's the beauty of chapter 6 and how I think it culminates together. So recognizing in our own lives, like, where are we being stopped from doing those basic things really well? Like, where's the devil whispering in our ear, like, you don't need to do that. That's not important. Keep going after the shiny things. Keep going after the money. Keep going after the title, the empowerment, the status. You're doing it for all the wrong reasons that keep us distracted from doing those things right. I think that if we lose ourselves in faith, we open ourselves up to a vulnerability in this world, because I absolutely believe spiritual warfare is real. I can't say what it is for everybody else, but I know that there is evil and darkness in this world, and I've seen it firsthand more times than I'd like to admit. And if we don't have the ability to anchor ourselves on something, that will overcome us.